have a wonderful question here from someone who is asking for additional resources or ways to become better educated about the Gulf states and their place in the world. This person says, for those of us who are woefully ignorant of this topic of which you speak, what are some credible references or resources that you would commend to us?
There's always me. So, good question. You know, in this age of warped information or manipulated information, there's lots of stuff out there, but a lot of it is monitored or, you know, manipulated. I mean, The Economist is a great source. It's easy to read. You can read it online if you have a subscription. There are lots of books, thoughtful books. I'm sure there's some in the bookstore. The Gulf is actually one of the regions of the world, because it's just emerging. These are very young states. That there are some good books on the history of the Gulf, but in terms of contemporary, I'm probably going to offend somebody. I can't think off the top of my head of a recent book that covers all the Gulf and, you know, kind of the rival factions among even the Gulfies. You know, Wahhabism is the religion of Saudi Arabia, the most conservative version of Islam. The people in Qatar are also Wahhabi, but they don't like each other. And Saudi Arabia led a boycott of Qatar for a while, blockade, aid, planes, everything. And I think sometimes, you know, some of the think tanks have good resources. So I wish I could give you better insight or offer one-stop shopping, but I can't think of one.
Thank you. I think the guidance to follow you is excellent. It helps us to know where to look. Really appreciative of
It's
that.
at Wright RB.
Wonderful. I wonder if you could say a bit more about the role of oil, particularly as in the United States, we've made concerted efforts to reduce our dependence upon oil. What is the role that you would see the United States playing in stabilizing the Middle East in the 21st century?
Look, oil is a tricky question. I think our previous speakers have talked about with American independence on, you know, some of its energy, or a lot of its energy, that we are less dependent on our Gulf allies, unlike in the aftermath of World War I and World War II, especially as we industrialized made cars, development depend on energy resources. But the rest of the world is not there yet. And as we move away from some of the alternatives, that makes us more dependent on oil, natural gas. And so that relationship won't change. You know, this is where China and Russia, well, Russia has its own oil, but China's dependent on oil imports from Saudi Arabia, as Vali pointed out yesterday, but also from Iran. And, you know, where do these countries look if that's where they're getting the energy for their development or to fuel their wars? China down the road against Taiwan, Russia now in Ukraine. That oil is weaponized, and Russia and Iran look increasingly at China. I mean, I think we're losing perspective of where is this kind of big geostrategic balance of power? How is it evolving? And we kind of look through with blinders of what is the issue for us, and we forget the huge reliance on energy and how it is still an incredible weapon, economically, militarily, politically.
Thank you. I wonder, in light of that, if there is something you would say about the dominance of the nations relative to one another in terms of their leadership among the Gulf states.
Say that again?
Is there a dominant leader?
A dominant
or how
theory?
would you rank the dominance of the Gulf nations relative to one another in terms of their power and influence?
Well, I mean, Saudi Arabia is the biggest. A good part of it is desert, empty quarter in the south. It actually has a pretty small population. There are 20 million pure Saudis, 37 million if you add the foreign workers who are there. The Gulf states, the 6 Gulf states together have only 62 million people. That's all of them, and they're not always friendly. And meanwhile, Iran has 90 million, and it is the most important geostrategic property in the Gulf because it has consumers, because its literacy is off the charts. It has a very sophisticated polity, the most sophisticated in the Middle East. I mean, for centuries there was Persian envy. Because the universities and the ideas came from Iran. I'll tell you one quick story that I told last night at dinner, but it's, again, to show the perspective of the difference in the development of countries in the Gulf. The first great leader of the first great empire was named Cyrus the Great. And Cyrus, this was an empire that spanned 3 continents, transportation and tribes and religions. And he was the first one to declare in human history by a leader that power is only legitimate if it is provided, given, endowed by the people. He told the Jews and facilitated, go back to Jerusalem, build your second temple. He provided resources. He returned their religious vessels. He was so influential that Zenon, who was a student of Socrates, wrote what became known as the Cyropedia, the book of writings of Cyrus the Great. The Cyropedia became important in the thinking of great leaders throughout history. Machiavelli, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson had 2 Cyropedias, one of them underlined. He wrote his nephew and said, if you want to understand democracy, you have to begin with Cyrus. So in 1879, British archaeologists in Mesopotamia found a rugby-sized object of baked clay, and in tiny cuneiform writing, it said, I, Cyrus, believe that power is the right of the people and comes from the people. So the Cyrus cylinder, as it's called, is now in the British Museum. And about 10 years ago, it came to the Smithsonian for a special display, a big glass case. Next to it, encased, was one of Thomas Jefferson's Cyropedia, underlined. So this is where, when you talk about dominance, Iran is, the most sophisticated country. When Iranians think of themselves, they don't think of the Islamic Republic or the supreme leader, unless they have to. They think of their great history. And just like we are proud of George Washington and our founding fathers, I'm a descendant of a signer of the Declaration of Independence, Iranians think of their founding. And it's very interesting, when you talk to historians, they will tell you the 3 great turning points of democracy were Cyrus and the Magna Carta and the U.S. Constitution.
Robin, we are so grateful for the optimism and the humanizing storytelling that you bring to this week. Please join me in giving a warm Chautauqua thank you to Robin Wright.